here at the scene of the crime spree, right behind me.
Let him do that, strange.
Vice Mayor Strange, you'll address her properly.
You can kiss my foot.
Mr. Rickard, you're out of order.
FBI, we are asking you to investigate this council. Please look into this council, how they award contracts, the bid process, how they use their positions to benefit their friends and themselves, how they use their positions to attack residents and critics and neighbors and business competition. FBI, will you please look into this?
And I welcome the FBI here. If you notice, Mr. Thompson, with his plea for the FBI and his watchdog group, this city runs the cleanest in this whole county. I guarantee
He was served a federal subpoena this morning.
We did receive a subpoena this morning, and we're going to cooperate 100% with the subpoena.
And most of you who were involved up here, you gaslighted me. You tried to say I was crazy. And now we know that that's not true. And there's a lot of other issues I've been asking about as well.
So now that the election is over, one of the strangest things happened. Of course, we know the results now. And this is concerning the race between Brian Cloudis and Griff Griffiths. The Saturday before Super Tuesday, the Saturday morning, Brian Cloudis went to his headquarters, which is a shared office space, right? It's a place with about, I think about 8 desks, and you have different, business people in there. And one of those desks was his desk, and he would invite people over to his headquarters. He'd have signs out front and that sort of thing. And he'd been going there for close to a year. And whenever he would go on a weekend, like a Saturday, there'd be nobody there. But the Saturday before the election, somebody was there, and it surprised him because the lights were off. And so when he walked into the downtown Panama City shared office space, there was somebody in there. And the guy turns around, and it was the mayor of Lynn Haven, Jesse Nelson. It's very surprising to Brian. And according to Brian, and you're going to hear Jesse's whole story, I'm going to share with you his whole story, straight from the horse's mouth, from Jesse Nelson himself, the mayor, because I analyzed it today, and it confirmed what I think about Mayor Jesse Nelson. He's a gaslighter. He's a very dishonest guy, and I'll show you. So according to Brian, and you're not going to hear his version, you're only going to hear the mayor's version of the story. According to Brian, he walked in, as he does sometimes on the weekends, and to his surprise, Mayor Nelson was in there. Mayor Nelson turned around and said, Brian was going to be sign waving. That's where people thought he probably was. And according to Brian, Jesse says, well, it's been a busy campaign week, hasn't it? Brian says, yeah, what are you doing here? And he says, well, my wife sells real estate. She's got a desk here. And Brian said that he's asked, do you sell real estate? And Jesse says, no, and just walked out the back door. Okay, that's Brian's story. Now, Jesse's story is different. Mayor Nelson said it's normal for him to be in there, okay, because he's a real estate agent himself now. And his real estate company that he works for, they have office space in there, okay? So he goes in there and he does work in there. He said he had a showing later that morning, and he was just in there printing some stuff off, getting ready for his showing. And it's not unusual at all. And of course, there's truth to that. Just weeks before, the real estate company rented a desk, rented office space in the shared office building. And just weeks ago, by this company. So he has access to the building. Totally normal. To think anything more than that is unfair, says Mayor Nelson. But he leaves out a lot, right? He leaves out the fact that his political advisor and campaign manager is also the political advisor and campaign manager for Griff Griffiths, the opponent of Brian Cloudis. And that this is where Brian Cloudis' campaign material is. He just leaves all that out as though it's completely irrelevant. And he acts as though he's been there all the time for a long time. But that's not the case. He also, during the interview, said a lot of things that were not true. He was extremely defensive. He was very defensive. He said things that weren't true and demonstrably untrue. I'll show you. And the strangest part of all is during this interview, he said he wanted it to be recorded. And I said, okay, well, then let me record my side too. And of course, we agreed. And he said, if you play the interview, I just ask that you play it in its entirety. Post it, the whole thing. No edits. Don't, don't make me look bad. Just post the entire thing so people can hear the whole thing. So I did that on August 20th, and so did he. So we both kept our word. The entire interview is posted, not edited. Tonight, I'm going to take the part of the interview where I tried to ask him about that encounter. Later this week, I'll share with you the interview, the 5 minutes or so, that I tried to get an answer about his Doctor of Leadership. And the reason that's important is because he posted it on the on the Supervisor of Elections website, which you're under oath when you post that, right? He has a Doctor of Ministry, not a Doctor of Leadership. But under oath, he said he had a Doctor of Leadership. So it's important. And he always, of course, is evasive and defensive about that as well. But you'll hear that later. But what I wanted you to know as you watch this right now, because I'm going to play it for you. It's an audio interview, but I have included emails and video clips and other things pertinent to this conversation that Jesse and I have. But the weirdest thing of all, besides everything I just said, the weirdest thing of all is there was a woman who was whispering answers to him during this interview. So when I would ask him a question, a woman would be whispering to him, Jesse, there's cameras in there. Tell him there's cameras in there. You signed in. Tell him you signed in. Why does he need a person? I don't know who it is. I don't know if it's an attorney, an advisor, his wife. I don't know who it is. I asked in the end of the interview, which was the second part that you'll hear later this week. And he said, don't worry about it. Okay. I'm just wondering why you have to have somebody whisper answers to you. It's fair. It's fair. But what you'll notice in this is that Mayor Nelson is a gaslighter. He tries to make you feel crazy for even asking these questions. He tries to make you feel as though this was the most normal thing in the world. It wasn't. And another thing that he does is what Hector Solis did and what Jeff McConnell did. They were both, they're former council members in Panama City Beach. They hide behind shields, right? Hector Solis used to say he was a law enforcement officer, and he sued me over, and it turned out in court he was an electrician in a prison. Okay. That's what we found out under oath. Discovery is incredible in lawsuits. He dismissed it. But what Mayor Nelson does And my only criticism of Mayor Nelson is as a mayor. But he posted on his page on Facebook that Bernie Thompson is once again questioning him. And he's a man of the cloth, see? His ethics are above this. And he's being attacked as a man. He's being attacked as a father. He's being attacked as a husband. He's being attacked as a pastor. No, Mayor, you're being scrutinized as a politician. Okay? That's what you're being scrutinized for. And you'll see that one thing he's very sensitive about is the political operative and his campaign manager that's also Griffith's campaign manager and political operative and dumpster diver and scumbag Arthur Cullen. He's very sensitive about that. It was Griffiths who said, "You are who you surround yourself with." And so he's just very sensitive about it. I asked him if he knew that his political operative had a fake Facebook page, Alex Cantone. And he said he was unaware of that. I asked him if he'd ever communicated on Facebook with Alex Cantone, and he says no. But Ryan Scray, with the Lynn Haven Facebook page, says he saw him doing it during a debate for mayor. That's why it's relevant. So I'm going to play this. You'll hear it. It's posted on YouTube right now. And you'll see how he gaslights you. He tries to make you feel like your questions are completely crazy. That because I'm not even gonna get into that. All I'm saying is you cannot hide behind the cloth. You cannot hide behind your family when I am criticizing you or scrutinizing you as a politician. You don't get to do that. And you certainly don't get to pull the race card, which I heard the woman whispering in the second part of the interview that you'll hear later this week. You don't get to hide behind those things. You are held to the same standards as Mayor Mike Thomas, as Mayor Mark Sheldon, as anybody else in this town. All right. So you ready for this? This is going to be hot, I'll tell you, because he was extremely defensive from the get-go, and you're going to hear that right after this.
You want to look good? You want to feel good? Little John's Big and Tall is where it's at, right across the street from Sky's Pizza Pie, 5700 North Davis Highway. You can find out more online at littlejohnsbigandtall.com. He's also a member of the iTex trading community, where your iTex dollars are welcome. Don't let back pain and neck pain get you down. Find relief at Brown Chiropractic Center on St. Andrews Boulevard in Panama City. Dr. Sherry Brown helps people heal naturally with chiropractic adjustments and deep tissue massage. Call 769-3777. All right. Keep in mind that this entire interview was posted on Facebook on August 20 on this page and also on Jesse Nelson's page. I think it was his mayor page, or maybe it was, I don't know, maybe it was his personal page. But so we both kept our word on that. This is an analysis after the fact, because he said a few things that I had to run down. I had to find out who was telling the truth. Was Brian Cloudis telling the truth about this encounter, or was Mayor Nelson? So let's take a listen.
As a pastor, my ethic is above that. Not just as a pastor, just as a Christian, my ethic is above that. So for me, I'm fair. I'm open to anyone. As I stated, you probably heard in my city commission meeting, and I didn't even initially come out and state it until someone said that, hey, I've talked with Brian Cloudis, and I said, I haven't talked with him.
Thank you. And I will say, let me say, I'll usually meet with anyone that asks to meet with me. And so I haven't met with Mr. Cloudis or Ms. Piazza because neither one of them have requested to meet with me. So I find it interesting how one can say they're going to represent the city and not really meet with individuals that are, trying to help envision things for the city as well. So
Mr. Thompson, I think when you want to report things, and I know you like the candidates that you like, but you know from
It is interesting that he just said that he said you don't even, what do you say, talk to people who, you know, are in the city, basically. On the, you know, you didn't come talk to us. Well, he had the backing of two of the 5 members of the city commission. He has 2 of them. One is watching right now, Judy Tinder. 2 of them already were backing him, so that's not true. But did Brian try to talk to the mayor as well? Mayor Nelson says he should if he's running for state representative.
From a political standpoint, how can you run for state representative and not even attempt to try to formally have a conversation with the mayor or the city manager of a city that you say you're trying to represent? So as a political consultant, can you help me understand that? How
You
can
want me to tell you?
Yes, I want you to help me because you're endorsing,
Brian-
if I'm not mistaken, you're endorsing Brian Cloudis, correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
Man,
so
let me-
as a political consultant,
Man, hang on.
okay,
I reached out to you and I asked you 5 questions about why you were standing in the dark in Brian Cloudis's office in the Hive, which is a shared office space.
correct.
And you haven't answered a single question, but now you want me to tell you
Right.
what's going on in Brian's head?
Well, the reason I'm asking that is because Brian has my number just like you do. If these were his concerns, he could have easily called me and asked me that, or he could have asked me while I was there when he saw me face to face.
Are the answers easy answers?
The answers are pretty simple.
All right, so why don't we get to them then?
Because I want you to answer my question, Mr. Thompson. And I'm going to put out there that Mr. Thompson refused to answer my questions, just like Brian Cloudis has refused to have a formal meeting with me.
Okay, so what we'll do, I think this conversation is going.
I want you to hear what he just said, okay? Because this is very important. He's very slippery. Later on, he'll change time frames, okay? Remember that this interview took place last week on August 20th. Well, I guess, it was August 20th. And he just said on August 20th, 3 days before the election, listen, that Brian Cloudis has refused to meet with me. He said that August 20th. Brian Cloudis has refused to meet with me. That's a week and a half ago. That was Saturday. That's different than Brian didn't formally reach out to me before July 26. Listen.
All right, so why don't we get to them then?
Because I want you to answer my question, Mr. Thompson. And I'm going to put out there that Mr. Thompson refused to answer my questions, just like Brian Cloudis has refused to have a formal meeting with me.
Okay, so what we'll do, I think this conversation has gone in a way that I think you're right. I think that the entire conversation should be shared and not edited at all.
And it was on August 20th.
That's fine.
Okay, so why don't I answer all your questions first and then you answer all my questions? Would that be fair?
Sure.
Okay, what are your questions?
One of my questions is, as a state representative or someone running for state office, why has Mr. Cloudis not formally tried to meet with myself or the city manager?
He did.
In the city of Lynn Haven.
My answer to you is, I don't know. I don't know if he has or if he hasn't. I have no idea.
Notice the date on this email from Brian to the mayor. This was July 26. I'm talking to Jesse Nelson a week and a half ago. Mayor Nelson is saying a week and a half ago that Brian never, first he said Brian refused to meet with him. Now he's saying Brian never formally requested a meeting. Look at the subject line. Jesse Nelson is a very dishonest man. He's a very dishonest mayor. And he's a gaslighter.
In the city of Lynn Haven.
My answer to you is, I don't know. I don't know if he has or if he hasn't. I have no idea.
Okay. My next question is, why are you calling me on behalf of Mr. Cloudis? Mr. Cloudis saw me. Mr. Cloudis saw me this morning.
Because I caught wind of this and I want to know what you were doing there.
Okay.
Look, now I'm a watchdog. I'm a journalist. It's very weird that the mayor of Lynn Haven is standing in the dark next to the desk.
Okay. So let me ask you this, Mr. Thompson. What? No. Let me ask you this. Go ahead.
Answer my questions.
Okay. What are you accusing me of? Because obviously you're thinking something to even call me with this. What are you accusing me?
Mayor, I'm not accusing you of. I'm asking, what were you doing there? Can you answer that?
Sure. So what do you want to know, Mr. Thompson?
What were you doing next to Brian Cloudis?
So for one, let's get the facts. Let's get the facts straight. One, I was never next to Mr. Cloudis' desk. There's also cameras in there, I believe. So one was never next to.
I want you to hear that right there. So there's a woman whispering to him, and a woman whispers to Mayor Nelson that there are cameras in there. Okay. Remember, he's only had access to this office for no more than 2 weeks before he was standing in there on a Saturday morning, where Brian Cloudis had never seen anybody in there on a Saturday morning, excuse me, for nearly a year. Why is there a woman whispering that there are cameras inside there to him? I mean, is that not weird? Listen.
Straight. One, I was never next to Mr. Cloudis' desk. There's also cameras in there, I believe. So one was never next to Mr. Cloudis' desk. So whoever told you that, if Mr. Cloudis told you that, he told you a lie. So let's start. I don't know who told you that, but let's start with that.
Where were you?
I was at the desk over by the across the room from Mr. Cloudis' desk.
Listen to that.
So not even a lie. So let's start.
So when I asked him where he was, the woman whispers again to him. Do you hear this woman whispering to him? Where were you? Why does a woman have to whisper the answer to him? Okay, I'm not crazy to wonder that, Jesse. I'm not crazy to wonder why a woman has to whisper the answer to you. You're a gaslighter. And anybody, probably his defenders, won't watch this. They'll just assume I'm attacking him as a man, as a pastor. I'm scrutinizing him as a mayor. And I'm saying that he's being dishonest here.
Well, I don't know who told you that, but let's start with that.
Where were you?
I was at the desk over by the across the room from Mr. Cloudis' desk. So not even near Mr. Cloudis' desk. Nowhere near Mr. Cloudis' desk. I was at the Kirkman Group's desk because I sell real estate. I'm a licensed real estate agent with the Kirkman Group. My wife is also a licensed real estate agent with the Kirkman Group. I had an appointment this morning in Chipley, Florida at 11:30 a.m., which I went to the Kirkman Group's desk to print my paperwork off so that I could be prepared for my appointment this morning for my showing in Chipley, Florida.
So you sell real estate?
Yes.
Did Brian ask you if you sold real estate?
He didn't ask me that, no.
Okay. And was anybody with you?
My daughter was with me.
Okay. In the car?
Yes.
Okay. And have you been in the hive prior to this?
I have been in the hive prior to this. I was in the hive Wednesday. Matter of fact, you can go to the Kirkman Group's Facebook page, see my face in the picture of being a part of the group at the hive.
It's not there.
Okay.
I was at the hive this previous Wednesday. This was my first time ever seeing Mr. Cloudis at the hive.
Okay. Did you know that
Remember, he's only had access to the hive for a couple of weeks. Brian has been there for 9 months. And Mayor Nelson acts like it's unusual that he's never seen Brian there. Mayor Nelson, maybe it's because you had only had access for the last couple of weeks. Could that be why?
That he was there?
Yeah, his desk is right there. I mean, it's obviously I can see his desk right there. So he has his desk, he has his stuff there. Most people assume that this is campaign headquarters because I've been there and people have come by looking for me. Then they have another number posted to say, if you're looking for Brian Cloudis to meet with him, call this number or something like that.
Did you or your wife start renting office space at the Hive recently?
We don't rent the office space. The Kirkman Group rents the office space. We work for the Kirkman Group.
How do you spell that, Kirkland?
Kirkman, Scott Kirkman.
Okay. So your wife did not start renting, or did the Kirkland Group start renting office space recently?
Within the past couple of months, probably, yes.
Couple of months.
Okay, so that's what happened. So the real estate group started renting space in there.
Correct. Before I became a real estate agent with that group, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Keep the timeline here, okay? This is Saturday, August 20th. He said that the real estate group started renting space in the shared office downtown Panama City, where Brian would call it his campaign headquarters. According to Mayor Nelson, they started renting that space within the last couple of months. So it would have been July 20, June 20. So sometime around June 20 or less, according to Mayor Nelson. And then Mayor Nelson said they started renting it before he started working with them. So it had to only be a couple of weeks that Mayor Nelson has had access to the shared office space where Brian Cloud's headquarters was. But he's talking to me as though he's been there for a long time. Gaslighting. That's gaslighting. It's trying to make you feel crazy so that you doubt yourself. And it's not working.
All right, so that's it. You are selling real estate for the group, and you were just in there preparing for a meeting today at 11, and Brian walked in, and you guys had a very brief conversation. He says that the first thing that happened was you said, it's been a big campaign week, hasn't it? And he said, do you have office space here? And I'm just asking if this is a conversation. And then you said, my wife has office space here. She sells real estate. And he says, he asked if you sold real estate. And you said no.
He did not ask me if I sold real estate, Mr. Thompson.
Right out the back door.
Mr. Thompson, he didn't ask me if I sold real estate.
What's that?
He did not ask me if I sold real estate. Again,
okay.
let's go on the facts here. One, okay. If he told you I was beside his desk, that's a lie. So that's fact number one, that he gave you is a lie. Fact number two, he never asked me if I sold real estate. If he told you that he asked me that, and if I did not answer, then that's another lie. So Mr. Cloudis is telling you lies, Mr. Thompson.
Okay.
I wonder what else he's lying about. If he's telling you simple lies that I'm beside his desk, when there's nothing with our real estate group that's even near his desk, wasn't even near the guy's desk. Matter of fact, when you go to the Hive.
All right. So now here's the woman again. A woman whispers to him, you signed in. And so Mayor Nelson says, as a matter of fact, I signed in. Why does he need a woman to whisper these answers to him? All right. The rest of this coming up right after this.
Hand caught in the cookie jar? Sometimes bad habits continue even into adulthood. I'm El Saline, 850-215-0628. Let me help you.
It's a hot time in Florida, and my friend Ryan could make sure your air conditioning is running at peak efficiency. He could even install a new one, built to a higher standard, American standard. Find out more at PCAirrepair.com.
All right, so I asked him where he was in there, and can you hear listen close. Listen close and tell me if you can hear the woman whisper to him.
That I'm beside his desk when there's nothing with our real estate group that's even near his desk. Wasn't even near the guy's desk. Matter of fact, when you go to the Hive, you can see where I signed in to the Hive. You have to have a thumbprint to get in the hive. So there's no sneaky backdoor stuff going on for whatever he might be trying to accuse me of, or whatever you're trying to insinuate that he's trying to accuse me of.
Okay, well, now we have both sides of the story, don't we?
No, we have the truth now. You had his side before. Now you have the truth. And Mr. Thompson, and you can share this publicly, however you want to do it.
Oh, yeah, we will. The whole thing on that is,
Yeah. But please don't drag me into the dirty politics that you all like to play, because I don't do that. I'm so serious. I don't.
The dirty politics I like to play.
I said you all. I didn't say just you. Whoever out there plays it. I mean, you have your show. You say things on your show. You incriminate people on your show. You even have me on your show saying, hey, what kind of pastor is this if he has Arthur Cullen as his campaign manager?
No, I don't.
Yeah, you should really not. You should separate from him now. He's a scumbag.
My criticism of Jesse Nelson is never as a mayor or a pastor. I'm sorry, never as a pastor. My criticism of Jesse Nelson is solely as a mayor. When he's not the mayor, I won't scrutinize him anymore. The reason I bring up his degree is because it was part of his campaign as mayor. Okay. He said he has a doctorate in leadership. He does not. You'll hear that conversation later in the week, and it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. He has a doctor in ministry. And for the life of me, I don't know why he's not proud of it. This is bad leadership. Okay. Having somebody whisper answers to you in an interview is bad leadership. Okay. And hanging around with a political operative and dumpster diver who has fake accounts on Facebook so that he can engage in politics of personal destruction. Those aren't good leadership qualities. I bring it up because he, under oath, on the supervisor of elections website, claimed to have, vote for me, Dr. Nelson, doctor of leadership. He's not a doctor of leadership, and he knows it. And I'm not crazy to bring that up. And it's not racist to bring it up either, but I'll save that for later.
If he has Arthur Cullen as his campaign manager.
Yeah, you should really not. You should separate from him now. He's a scumbag. You are aware of that, right?
I mean, that's your opinion, though.
So did you ever communicate with the account, Alex Cantone?
I did not. Nope.
You never did. You never communicated with Alex Cantone.
I never communicated with Alex Cantone. No, sir.
Do you know who that is?
I do not. No, sir.
You don't know that Alex Cantone was a fake account that Arthur Cullen used?
That's what I've heard you all say, but I don't know that for a fact.
You don't know that. And you don't ask your friend?
I didn't ask him about it. No, sir.
That's just something you don't think about asking him, huh?
Right.
I mean, just like you haven't asked Brian Cloudis, has he talked with the mayor and city manager of Lynn Haven?
Okay. Did he ever reach out to you trying to set up a meeting with you?
I met Mr. Cloudis twice. First time I met Mr. Cloudis was random. These are random meetings. First time I met Mr. Cloudis was at Best Buy. I was checking out. Mr. Cloudis said, oh, hey, Mayor. And we spoke a little bit. He says, I'm going to reach out to you. I said, okay. Never heard from him. Yeah. Second time I ran into Mr. Cloudis was at the 4th of July parade.
This is really important. This is really important right here, because he said on August 20th, a week and a half ago, that he had bumped in to Brian Cloudis at Best Buy to listen. And he said, I never heard from him again. It's August 20th, a week and a half ago. But when I ask him about the emails that Brian sent him, then he changes the time frame to I've never heard from him yet to I never heard from him as of July 26th. It's very slippery. Listen.
I met Mr. Cloudis twice. First time I met Mr. Cloudis was random. These are random meetings. First time I met Mr. Cloudis was at Best Buy. I was checking out. Mr. Cloudis said, oh, hey, Mayor. And we spoke a little bit. He says, I'm going to reach out to you. I said, okay. Never heard from him.
Yeah.
Second time I ran into Mr. Cloud was at the 4th of July parade.
Did he ever email you or ask you to meet?
He emailed me after, notice when he emails me, he emails me after a city commission meeting whenever I say, Mr. Cloudis has not reached out to me to ask for a meeting. Because Judy Tender was saying, hey, I had a great meeting with Brian Cloudis. And I said, well, I haven't heard from Mr. Brian Cloudis to have a meeting with him. Then Mr. Cloudis that night.
Do you see how difficult it is to have a conversation with him? Have you ever been in a relationship where talking to somebody, asking simple questions that are fair questions, becomes this kind of a exercise? I mean, this is like verbal gymnastics, man. Wow. This is gaslighting.
Tender was saying, hey, I had a great meeting with Brian Cloudis. And I said, well, I haven't heard from Mr. Brian Cloudis to have a meeting with him. Then Mr. Cloudis that night reaches out to me. I follow up with Mr. Cloudis. I respond back to his email.
Notice this too. This is weird. Okay. So this is July 27, 3 weeks before the election. The day before, during a meeting, Mayor Nelson, in a public meeting, Lynn Haven City Commission meeting, said that he had not heard from Brian Cloudis. So Brian Cloudis reached out to him and said, okay, well, I'm making a formal request. I showed that earlier in this video. But look at this the next morning. Now, remember, he's a doctor, right? He knows how to write. He knows punctuation. He says, good morning. Are you available to meet today? He's got a 30-minute window for the next 3 weeks, and it's right now. So Mayor Nelson gives Brian Cloudis, who is out knocking on 20,000 doors all day, he gives him a 30-minute window to meet after he's been complaining and saying how much he wants to talk to him about the future of Lynn Haven in the event Brian Cloudis would have won. And he gives him 30 minutes on that day, and that's the only time he ever gives to meet for the next, until the election 3 weeks later.
I give him a date that I can meet. Mr. Cloudis said he wasn't available. So just like you're curious about the questions I ask my friends, I would probably ask you the same thing. You don't ask your friends, if you're really trying to represent someone, why haven't you met with them? Why haven't you asked about what is their political? Why haven't you asked what is the
campaign manager having fake accounts that are nasty as hell?
I mean,
that's equivalent to that, Mayor Nelson.
No, we're talking about asking questions.
No, we're not.
We're talking about asking questions of our friends.
You see how slippery it is? We're not talking about asking questions. I didn't call Mayor Nelson to ask about his friends, and he knows this. I called him to ask him what he was doing with the lights out on a Saturday morning inside the Cloudis headquarters, which is, because there's always got to be plausible deniability in things like this, right? It is an open office space where you can rent a desk, and he just became a real estate agent just a couple weeks before, started working for the real estate company that just a couple weeks before started renting office space next to Brian Cloudis' desk. And we're supposed to think that this is about asking each other about our friends. This is not an honest mayor. This is a gaslighter.
I'm asking you, why haven't you asked?
Look, I'm happy to ask because I want you guys talking. I want to talk to all of you. As a matter of fact, I'm thrilled that you called me, and I think that we should communicate more often.
Well, and here's the thing, Mr. Thompson. You communicate in a way, your rhetoric is different than the way that I like to communicate. I don't communicate that way.
I'll say.
What do you mean?
I'm just saying the way your rhetoric is different than how I communicate. Like I don't call people scumbags and stuff like that. That's just not my rhetoric, right? So oftentimes, and you might be a great guy to talk to, communicate with.
Okay, so now here's what he's doing. Understand, I've been around the block. Now here's what he's doing. He's saying that he has higher moral standards. Okay. Remember his very first comments in this interview. He has higher moral standards. He doesn't like to communicate with people like Bernie Thompson, whose rhetoric he doesn't approve of. But he just got done defending Arthur Cullen, and he was endorsing prominently Griff Griffiths, who just about that time frame had told the Republican Executive Committee of Bay County that was considering endorsing Brian Cloudis. Griff Griffiths, whom he was endorsing, was upset and called the chairman of the Republican Executive Committee because a lady by the name of Liz McLean, she had brought up the idea of endorsing Brian Cloudis. So Griff Griffiths calls up Commissioner, a powerful guy, calls up and says, she doesn't know who she's messing with. I'll take her down. Okay. That kind of rhetoric, the mayor has no problem endorsing. Calling out those people, however, that is stuff that Mayor Nelson would never associate himself with, because he's a much more, his ethics are higher than to talk to somebody who uses rhetoric like I do. You see?
Rhetoric, right? So oftentimes, and you might be a great guy to talk to, communicate with, but oftentimes your rhetoric is a turnoff for me anyway, because I just don't communicate that way.
Gotcha.
So I'm not saying that you're a bad guy. It's just for me, I don't do that type of rhetoric. I don't, talk bad about people and things of that nature. I just don't.
All right. So that was the good stuff. That was it. Oh boy, hold on. All right. So I wanted to share that with you because I took some time today to really give that a listen. I remember when I had the conversation with Mayor Nelson, it was just he was so defensive and so evasive and so dishonest that I really had to give it a good listen and analyze it. And I wanted to separate it because the last 5 minutes or so I asked him about his doctor of leadership that he claims to have. And that went even worse. That was even worse. And that's when the lady who was telling him what to say really started getting fired up. She started getting loud. So I wanted you to know this. This is important stuff. And I've got so much important stuff. We have stuff that I'm going to share with you this week that you'll believe. I was going to say you won't believe it. You'll believe it. But seeing it is going to shock you. And it's really hard to believe that people in our community who call themselves leaders and who the press, the PR, call themselves press, call leaders. When you find out what they did after the hurricane, how they extended hurricane cleanup so that they could inflate the prices and line their pockets, when you see it, you can't unsee it. And when you know that law enforcement, federal and state, know this, they have it,
And the prosecutors, federal and state, know it. They have it. And they don't act on it. And the 5-year statute of limitations is approaching. It's almost too much to believe. And I'll be sharing this with you as well. Not a single bigwig, not a single bigwig will stand up for this community. Not one. But if they don't change, we have to change them. Am I right or wrong? If you appreciate what I'm doing here, I hope you'll help me. And I hope that you'll become a patron at patreon.com and support my efforts. As little as $5 a month. It's anonymous. It's easy. And you can quit anytime. Patreon.com. This whole operation survives on crowdfunding and sponsors. Sponsors like, by the way, and if you have not subscribed to my YouTube page, I hope you will. I do more here than I do there, but it's important to me, and it would mean a lot to me if you subscribe to the Bernie Thompson Show on Facebook. And also, as always, I'd like to thank the Unknown Patriot, another sponsor of the show. I don't know if it'll ever get old looking at that picture. Thank you for being with me, and I hope that you'll share this so that people know what we, the kind of mayor we have in Lynn Haven. And you're going to see a lot more, not just in Lynn Haven. You're going to see a lot more throughout Bay County this week. I can't even believe it. All right. Thank you for being with me, and I will see you tomorrow.